It's National Men's Health Month. And, seeing I'm a man, these things concern me too. And, I like to get the guys out there to do a little bit of thinking. Because one of the things about men is when it comes to our health, our well-being, we are in denial. And that's not a river in Egypt. We're in denial. And according to what I've got in front of me, he says June's National Men's Health Month, a time to remind men of the health issues they face and what they can do to take charge of their health. Men are significantly less, listen to this, guys. Men are significantly less likely than women to see a doctor or report symptoms to a healthcare provider. Only 60% of men go to a doctor for a yearly routine checkup, and 40% won't go until something is seriously wrong. I find that to be very true. Despite these statistics, 20% of men report seeing a doctor so their significant other or loved one will stop nagging them. Said Helen Burney, DOP, MPH, Director of Male Sexual and Reproductive Medicine and Assistant Professor of Urology. Burney also leads the state of Indiana's only male sexual reproductive medicine fellowship. It's important to encourage the men in your life to see a doctor. You can make an impact. She goes on to say, here are some important facts about men's health to know. The overall mortality rate is 41% higher for men than women. And it's higher for men for 8 out of 10 leading causes of death. 8 out of 10, that's 80%. Including heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes. 31% of men suffer depression in their lifetime, and 9% of men have daily feelings of depression or anxiety. But only 1/4 talk to a mental health care professional, and only 1/3 take medication. Pay attention to signs of depression and don't be afraid to seek help. Prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths for men in the United States. A man is 2 to 3 times more likely to get prostate cancer if his father, brother, or son had it. Talk to your doctor about having PSA or DRE levels checked. Erectile dysfunction affects nearly 30 million men of all ages across the United States. If you're having problems, see a urologist and make sure it's not an early warning sign of something that's more serious, like heart disease, high blood pressure, or high blood sugar. Well, these are the issues at hand, guys. And a lot of this has to do with lifestyle. The average male in this country lives to be about 76 years of age. 76. That's it. Well, I'm 69 this month. So if I was average, I would figure I've got about 7 more years. But I don't think I'm average. Because I do all the things that are necessary to live a longer life, a good life. I follow the Lance diet. I exercise in the Lance program. I love my wife. And I go to the doctor probably 3 or 4 times a year. Regular physicals. EFs are done. Blood work is done. All the things necessary to live a good life, guys. And a good life starts with a positive mental attitude. And a positive mental attitude has to do with how you approach your daily activities, your daily importances, put it that way. I don't know if importances is a word. It probably isn't, but I made a new one. Put it in a dictionary. Be organized and prioritize what's important in your life. This is completely off the track that I was going to take today, by the way. Because I was unaware until about 12 o'clock today that this is Men's Health Month. But prioritizing things that are important to us when it comes to our health should be number one. What's your priority when it comes to your health? Mine is my relationship with God. I have a closeness with him. I have a personal relationship with him. And I don't mind saying that. I talk to him every day. I've been lucky enough for him to talk back, too. The next thing is my relationship with my wife. I love more than anything on this earth. Prioritize. Next thing is my relationship with my family, my children, and my brothers and sisters. I was fortunate enough to come from a family with 10 kids. I'm the third oldest. I lost my older brother in 2011 from cancer. Once I get past that point, then things get packed close together. The next one is going to be how I take care of myself for the above. God doesn't want me to be lazy or slothy. Doesn't want me to be a slob and not take care of myself. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, it tells us in the Bible. I'm not meaning to get into preaching, but that's a fact. The body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And I'm sure if you're like me, if you have something that's really valuable, you're not going to treat it badly, are you? In this case, many of us do. We treat the body badly. Our diets suck. We don't exercise regularly. We don't sleep well. And we're in a nasty mood all the time. So let's start first with diet, guys. And ladies, you can listen to this as well. What's your diet like? I was at the grocery store the other day. Some guy he's walking on his grocery cart. He's about my age, I would think. And the cart was loaded with nothing but boxed cereals. I am serious. Boxed cereals and cartons of soda pop. There we go. I guess he doesn't care about his body, does he? Because what you put in is what you get out. And I've got all kinds of stuff in front of me. Pilot study shows how a ketogenic, that's a low-carb diet, improves severe mental illness. Yeah, this is brand new. Stanford. A low-carb diet that Dr. Fit has been preaching since the 1990s on this radio station most of the time. Let me share this with you. For people living with serious mental illness like schizophrenia or bipolar, standard treatments with antipsychotic medications can be a double-edged sword. While these drugs may help regulate brain chemistry, they often cause metabolic side effects such as insulin resistance and obesity, which are distressing enough that many patients stop taking the medications. Now remember what I say all the time about Big Pharma makes money off the markets that they create. They use the food companies to do that. Now a pilot study led by Stanford medical researchers has found that a ketogenic diet not only restores metabolic health in these patients as they continue their medications, but it further improves their psychiatric conditions. The results published in psychiatry research suggests that dietary intervention can be a powerful aid in treating mental illness. One of the things that happens to guys. It's very promising and very encouraging that you can take back control of your illness in some way aside from the usual standard of care, says Dr. Shabani Sethi, MD, Associate Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences and the first author of the new paper. The senior author of the paper is Laura Saslow, PhD, Associate Professor of Health Behavior and Biological Sciences at the University of Michigan. I'm going to get more into this article after the break. But guys, listen to what I've got to say. What is your main objective in life? Your priority? What is it? When you start to prioritize things, things start to fall in place and life gets better. A good life for you. And this is Men's Health Month. So make a commitment to yourself and the priorities in your life, those individuals that mean the most to you, to take care of you. Because there's only one of you. Treat it like the temple of the Holy Spirit. All right, let's get back to the guys. Mental health, pilot study, Stanford shows ketogenic diet improves severe mental illness. Making the connection. Dr. Setti, a board-certified obesity and psychiatry, remembers that when she first noticed a connection as a medical student working in an obesity clinic, she saw a patient with treatment-resistant schizophrenia whose auditory hallucinations quieted on a ketogenic diet. Did you get that? Quieted on a ketogenic diet because this doctor was paying attention. That prompted her to dig into the medical literature. There were only a few decades old cases, reports of using a ketogenic diet to treat schizophrenia. But there was a long track record of success in using ketogenic diets to treat epileptic seizures. The ketogenic diet has been proven to be effective for treatment-resistant epileptic seizures by reducing the excitability of the neurons in the brain. We thought it would be worth exploring this treatment in psychiatric conditions. A few years later, Setti coined the term metabolic psychiatry, a new field that approaches mental health from an energy conversion perspective. Now, let me say this. I'm going to interject this right here. The same thing applies to Alzheimer's. Look at this, the research that was done at BYU in the Alzheimer's brains. That the brain uses an alternative source of energy called ketones, fat, to make fuel. So it functions properly, just like the heart does. But when you're overloading the system with high carbohydrates, these receptor sites in the brain don't function properly over time. It says here a 4-month trial period. Setti's team followed 21 adult participants who were diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar, taking antipsychotic medications and had a metabolic abnormality such as weight gain, insulin resistance, high triglycerides, high cholesterol, and impaired glucose tolerance. 80% of Americans over the age of 50 fall in this category. The participants were instructed to follow a low-carb diet, ketogenic, with approximately 10% of calories from carbohydrates, 30% from protein, and 60% from fat. They are not told to count calories. The focus on eating is a whole, non-processed foods, including protein and non-starchy vegetables, and not restricting fats, said Ketty, who shared keto-friendly meal ideals with the participants. The research team tracked how well the participants followed the diet through weekly measures of blood ketone levels. By the end of the trial, 14 patients had been fully adherent, 6 were semi-adherent, and 1 non-adherent. Here's what the results. The participants underwent a variety of psychiatric and metabolic assessments throughout the trial. Before the trial, 29% of the participants met the criteria for metabolic syndrome, in other words, pre-diabetic, defined as having at least 3 of 5 conditions, belly fat. The average male in this country has a 41-inch belly. Did you know that? The average female, 39. Elevated triglycerides, low HDL, cholesterol, elevated blood sugar, blood pressure. After 4 months on the low-carb diet, none of the participants had metabolic syndrome. On average, the participants lost 10% of their body weight. They're not even taking semaglutide, are they? I stuck that in there, by the way. Reduced their waist circumference by 11% and had lower blood pressure, body mass index, triglyceride, blood sugar, and insulin resistance. It says here they went on to use fat as energy. And many of them got off medications completely. And I've got studies right in front of me that show people doing this years back. And once they did this diet, they never took medications again for these disorders. Now, I'm not telling you now, stop taking a drug and go on the diet. Get on the diet so over a period of time, you don't need the medications. This not only applies to guys, it applies to the women too. To ladies as well. So you can look at this stuff as, Dr. Fitness is spewing out his, his feelings on diet and nutrition again, but I'm telling you, it's a fact. Prioritize. I know in my case, my number one priority in my life, I told you that. And my number two, my number three, my number four. But part of the responsibility of men is to provide for the family. Even older men like me. I'll be 70 next year. Can't tell by my voice, can you? But I still feel it's important that I take care of my family. That means provide. Provide my wife with a healthy husband. So she doesn't have to worry about me. Provide my kids with a healthy father so they don't have to worry about me. Provide my grandkids with a healthy grandpa because they can spend time with me. Provide my clients, the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, except Sunday, with a healthy coach so they can depend on me to help get them healthier. Prioritize. Food. First step is food. All this garbage they've been feeding us over all these years of how we need to eat and all these carbohydrates. What has it done? 43% of our population today is obese. Another 40% is overweight. 80% of our population is obese or overweight. This is adults now. Kids are catching up. 80% of men and women over the age of 55 are diabetic or pre-diabetic. Prioritize. Who benefits? Big Pharma. They're making the cholesterol medications. They're making the blood sugar drugs. Semaglutide's one of them. They're making medications that are for diabetics, marketing for obesity because they're making big bucks. Then you look at psychiatric treatment. In one of the articles I have, worldwide, we're spending in the area of over $3 trillion. Trillion now, not billion. Trillion. To treat psychiatric disorders, most likely tied to food. It's Men's Health Month. And one of the conditions I referred to earlier with the guys and the concerns was mental health. You have to be focused. You have to be sharp. That comes from food. Guys who walk around during the day, you feel like you're in a fog sometimes. Maybe it's because of what you ate the night before or drank. Let's talk a little bit more here about exercise, how important this is for our men's mental health. I can tell you from my own personal experience, because I've been doing this stuff since I've been 14 years of age. That's a long time. A long time. Consistently. How important is exercise for my mental well-being? I can tell you, because it takes me about 25 minutes, I time myself, to go through my workout, Monday through Friday, the difference in my mental outlook after I'm done. I can also tell you by experiencing working with the guys that come in to see me and the ladies, how much better they feel when they're done exercising. Not only physically, but mentally. We produce chemicals, feel-good chemicals, called endorphins, that elevate the mood. Now you wonder, here I'm going to changes around a little bit for you so you understand this. People are in nasty moods today. Most of them have a D behind their name. And I won't go further than that. I'm not going to turn it into politics. But a lot of people don't exercise, particularly as we get older. The younger people are more active. The older people are less active. So if they're not getting this feel-good chemical called endorphins, no one seems to get along too well, do they? Just drive down the freeway. You see them driving down the freeway every day. Because we are designed for fight or flight. Did you know that? That's how our ancestors were allowed to exist as long as we've been here, which has been a long time. Anthropologists will tell you that. Fight or flight. Because life is constantly threatened. Now we don't have an outlet. Because you can drive through any fast food place and get your food. Or pick it up in a grocery store. You don't have to go look for it. Or you don't have to hide behind some tree or rock if some animal comes by and you try to hunt it down. There goes the pulse. Boom, 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 boom. Fight or flight. So the exercise helps to take care of that part for us, ladies and gentlemen. And the good thing is you don't need a lot of it. This is from Healthline. Exercise may be more effective than drugs for managing mental health. What you need to know. A new study has found that physical activity is highly beneficial in treating depression, anxiety, and psychological disorders. High-intensity exercise was the most effective type of exercise for mental health. Positive results were measured in less than 12 weeks. That's 3 months only. Researchers are recommending exercise as a mainstay in mental health treatment. Study has found that physical exercise is highly beneficial for decreasing mental health symptoms. With high and growing mental health stats, this study could be a positive implementation into treatments. The study was published just a few months ago in the British Journal of Sports Medicine. According to the World Health Organization, mental health affects 1 in 8 people around the world. Mental health costs the world economy an estimated $2.5 trillion a year, and that cost is expected to rise to $6 trillion in the next 6 years. Researchers are recommending structured exercise interventions as a key factor in treating mental health conditions. Structured means like people like me, not just going in the gym and mamby-pammying around trying to figure things out. Structured. The study included 97 reviews of randomized controlled trials. These 1,039 trials involved 128,119 participants who increased physical activity over a period of less than 12 weeks. The individuals were then assessed for depression, anxiety, and psychological distress. Participants ranged from those from mental health conditions, healthy individuals, and individuals with various chronic diseases. The addition of physical activity had higher positive effects on depression, anxiety, and psychological distress than usual care across all populations. The best was more high-intensity exercise like we do. So it shows you can't get away from the 3 things. Structured, that means accountability. Exercise, that means physical exertion. And food, that means what you stick in your face, in your pie hole. 602-260-5394 is the phone number. Give me 1 second. I need to take a sip here. That's what happens when you talk loud like Dr. Fitness. And you're breathing through your mouth as you're trying to talk. Anyhow, you need to be doing these things. And you need to prioritize them. Like I said, 25, 30 minutes of exercise, 2 or 3 days a week. Anybody has that time. Prioritize. Be accountable. You're accountable when you have an appointment. When you don't have an appointment, you have to figure out when you're going to go, and most people don't get there. You may think that when you drive past the gym, because there's a lot of them around nowadays, and they're packed, there's a lot of people who don't go. What you're seeing there is a small number, because 90% of people who join a gym within 3 months don't use it anymore. They're not accountable. Same thing applies to diet. This is why so many people they're getting on this Ozempic kick. Why? Because they're too lazy to stick on a diet on their own, because you know what it does? If you see the commercials, with diet and exercise. You're not going to lose weight if you don't change what you're eating. And because this is a blood sugar medication, it's working with the same concept of low carbohydrate. Only you can't stay on it forever. The side effects are too risky. Plus, it costs a small fortune. But here we go, and there's more on the brain, how important it is to eat the right food. The smell and sight, get this now, the smell and sight of a meal stimulate short-lived inflammatory response in the brain. Yeah, so when you smell it or look at it, if it's the wrong foods, you better be prepared, because you're going to cause inflammation to set in. Even before carbohydrates, this is in News Medical Life Sciences, even before carbohydrates reach the brain, the very sight and smell of a meal trigger the release of insulin. For the first time, researchers from the University of Basel and University Hospital Basel have shown that this insulin release depends on a short-term inflammatory response that takes place in these circumstances. In overweight individuals, however, this inflammatory response is so excessive that it can impair insulin secretion. Even the anticipation of a forthcoming meal triggers a series of responses in the body, the perhaps most familiar of which is watering of the mouth. But the hormone insulin, which regulates blood sugar, also arrives on the scene even before we tuck into the first mouthful of food. Experts refer to this as a neural-mediated syphilic response to insulin secretion. Food, smell, food, smell, sight. I'm just drinking some of my electrolytes there. It says in here, in the past, however, it was unclear how the sensory perception of a meal generated a signal in the pancreas to ramp up insulin production. But what it goes on to say is how this causes inflammation just by looking and smelling the food. Carbohydrates. Your body's preparing for overload of sugar in the diet, which causes an inflammatory response. So again, it's what you eat and what you look at. I think referred to as Pavlov's law. When a dog sees something, a food, starts to lick its lips. My dogs do that in anticipation of what they're going to eat. They're getting ready for it. People do the same thing. They're putting out insulin. So people that are really overweight, they have an overreaction to it.